I know it sounds wrong, but I can't stop replaying that moment in my head. It happened so fast, in a breath, in a heartbeat, in a hush I can't unhear. My brother was out getting pizza, and it was just me and him in the living room, the low hum of a game we weren't really watching filling the silence. I remember the way he laughed, the way it made his shoulders shake, the way I leaned in, pretending I was grabbing the controller. But really, I just wanted to be closer to that warmth, to that scent of something clean and familiar that made my chest tighten. His eyes found mine, and there was a pause, that kind of pause that feels like a soft crackle under your skin, where the air feels too heavy and too light all at once. I don't know who moved first, maybe it was me, maybe it was him. Maybe it was both of us just leaning into something we didn't know how to stop. And then his lips brushed against mine. It was supposed to be nothing. A quick, stunned mistake, the kind you laugh off with a shaky smile, pretending it didn't happen. But it wasn't nothing. It was warm, so warm I felt it sink into my bones. It was slow for a second, like the world was holding its breath, and I could feel every tiny tremor in my hands as I pressed them against the couch. I pulled away first. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was shaking the air between us. He looked at me, and I couldn't read his eyes, couldn't tell if it was regret or the same hungry confusion that was curling in my stomach. We didn't speak. We just sat there, breathing, the moment stretching out in the glow of the hallway light, pretending the moment didn't happen while every part of me was burning to feel it again. I didn't know then that later that night, when I was lying in bed replaying the shape of his mouth and the way his breath had trembled, my phone would light up with a message that would make everything even more impossible. I didn't open his message right away. I saw his name light up my screen, and my thumb hovered over it while my heart was already tripping over itself. It was late, the house was quiet, the shadows on my ceiling moving with every car that passed outside, and I could still feel the ghost of his lips on mine. I wanted to pretend it was just a moment, that it didn't matter. But my skin felt too warm under the blanket, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way he had looked at me after, like he was seeing something he shouldn't. When I finally opened the message, it was short. Just 7 words. Can I see you again tomorrow? Alone. I stared at it, my breath catching in my throat, and it was like every reason I should say no was screaming in my head. But they all got swallowed by the quiet, breathless want that was rising in my chest. Because the truth was, I wanted to see him again. I wanted to sit close enough to feel the heat between us, to watch the way his eyes flickered when they dropped to my mouth, to let that heavy silence wrap around us until we didn't have to pretend we weren't thinking the same thing. But he was my brother's best friend. The guy who had practically lived at our house since we were kids, who used to throw me over his shoulder when I was too small to reach the top shelf, who would ruffle my hair while I pretend to hate it. Now I was lying in bed, wondering what it would feel like to run my fingers through his hair, to pull him closer, to taste the hesitation in his breath. I typed out a reply so many times, deleting it over and over. My fingers were trembling. My mind was a mess of "you can't," and "but you want to." And then somehow my thumb pressed send. "Yeah. Tomorrow." "When?" He replied almost instantly. "After your brother leaves for work. I'll wait for you." I turned off my phone, pressed it to my chest, and lay there in the dark, my heart so loud I could almost hear it whispering, "You can't do this." "But you will." I couldn't focus on anything the next morning. Every sound in the house felt too loud. The clink of my brother's coffee cup, the door shutting behind him, the soft hum of the fridge. I kept checking the clock, feeling the hours crawl across my skin. And then when the house finally fell quiet, I heard the soft buzz of a message. "I'm here." I stood by the window, peeking through the blinds, and there he was leaning against his car, head tilted up to the sky like he was trying to calm himself down before stepping inside. I opened the door, and for a moment we just stood there. His eyes found mine, and the world seemed to hold its breath. I stepped back to let him in, closing the door softly behind him, and the click of the lock sounded too loud in the stillness. Neither of us knew what to say. We walked to the living room, but we didn't sit down. I could feel the space between us pulsing, like the room had shrunk around us, forcing us closer even as we tried to pretend there was still distance. His hand moved, almost as if he was reaching for me, then dropped back to his side. His jaw tightened, and his eyes flickered down to my lips before snapping back up. "I shouldn't have texted you," he said, but his voice was low, rough around the edges, like he didn't believe the words even as he spoke them. "I know," I whispered, Even though my body was screaming for him to do it again, to cross that line we both pretended wasn't there. I could feel it, the way the air changed, heavy and warm, pulling us closer, pulling us under. My breath caught when he took a slow step toward me, his hand reaching up to brush a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingertips grazing the edge of my neck so softly it made me shiver. "Tell me to leave," he whispered, so close I could feel his breath against my cheek. But I couldn't, because in that moment I didn't care about what was right or wrong. I just cared about the way his eyes were dark with something I felt mirrored in my own, the way the warmth of him made my heart beat like it was trying to escape. So I didn't say anything. I just closed the space between us, letting the tension snap like a string pulled too tight. And when his lips met mine again, it was softer this time, slower, like we were memorizing every second, every breath. And in that moment everything else fell away. The kiss was nothing like the first. This time it was careful, almost reverent, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he moved too quickly. His hand cupped the side of my face, and I felt the tremor in his fingers as his thumb brushed softly along my jaw. I pressed closer, needing to feel that warmth, that quiet chaos building under my skin. His other hand found my waist, resting there like a question, and I leaned into him, letting the answer be the way I sighed against his mouth, the way my hands curled into the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer until there was no space left between us. The world outside felt far away, the morning light catching on the edge of his hair, the soft hum of the fridge the only reminder that time hadn't stopped even if it felt like it had. When we pulled back, our foreheads rested against each other, our breaths uneven, the quiet between us charged with something that made my chest feel too tight. "This is so wrong," he whispered, his eyes searching mine, but I could see it, that same fire, that same fear, that same unstoppable wanting. "I know," I whispered back, my voice shaking. His hand slid from my face to the back of my neck, his fingers threading into my hair, pulling me closer again. His lips brushed against my cheek, down to the edge of my jaw, each touch sending soft sparks through me, making me press against him, wanting more, wanting everything we weren't supposed to want. "I can't stop thinking about you," he breathed, and my heart felt like it was going to burst, because I couldn't stop either. I couldn't stop thinking about the way his hands felt on me, the way his breath trembled when our lips touched, the way my body ached in the silence after. My hands moved without thinking, sliding up his chest, feeling the way it rose and fell under my touch, feeling the way he exhaled like he was letting go of something he'd been holding onto for too long. "I don't want you to," I said, and the words felt like a confession, like a promise, like a step over a line we couldn't come back from. His lips found mine again, deeper this time, slower, his hands pulling me closer, and I felt it. That soft, burning wave rolling through me, leaving me trembling in his arms, feeling everything and nothing at once. And in that moment I didn't care about the rules or the reasons or the consequences. All I cared about was him. We stayed there, holding each other, breathing each other in like we were afraid to let go. His chin rested on the top of my head, and I could hear the uneven rhythm of his heart, feel the way his chest rose and fell, fast and shallow, matching the fluttering in my own. My hands were still on his chest, and I could feel the warmth of him soaking into my palms, grounding me, even as everything else inside felt like it was spinning. "We can't let your brother find out," he whispered, his voice low, rough, carrying a hint of fear that made me shiver. "I know," I whispered back, and even though the words were true, there was a soft ache in them, like part of me wished we didn't have to hide, like part of me wanted the world to stop so we could stay here, just like this, with nothing between us. His thumb brushed along the side of my neck, tracing soft circles that made my skin tingle, made my breath catch. His eyes were on me, dark and warm, searching, pulling me in. "I've tried to forget that kiss," he said, and I felt his breath against my cheek, warm and shaky, "but I can't. I keep seeing you, thinking about you." I closed my eyes, pressing my forehead to his chest, letting the scent of him wash over me, letting the softness of that moment sink into my skin. "I can't either," I admitted, and the words felt like a quiet surrender, a truth I'd tried to fight every night since it happened. His hand lifted my chin, forcing me to look at him, and for a moment, the silence between us felt alive, heavy with everything we weren't saying, everything we were afraid to admit. "I don't know what this is," he whispered, his thumb brushing against my bottom lip, sending a soft wave of warmth through me, "but I don't want it to stop." His eyes dropped to my lips, and I felt the moment stretch, that soft, aching pause where I could feel every beat of my heart, every pull of breath, every inch of space closing between us. Then don't, I whispered, and the words barely left my mouth before his lips found mine again. This kiss was different. Slower, deeper, like we were letting ourselves sink, letting ourselves feel the soft, burning sweetness of something we both knew we shouldn't want, but couldn't stop craving. His hand slid down my back, pulling me closer, and I melted into him, feeling the warmth, the trembling, the way my body was reacting to every soft touch, every unspoken promise hidden in the press of his lips. In that moment, the world didn't matter. The rules didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the way he held me, the way he kissed me, the way his breath shook when he whispered my name like a secret. And I knew I would let it happen again. His hands were warm on my back, steady, even as everything else felt like it was trembling. We stayed close, the soft sound of our breathing the only thing filling the room, the morning light slipping through the curtains, catching the edges of his hair and the softness in his eyes. He looked at me like he was memorizing everything, like he didn't know how to let go. "Are you scared?" he asked, his thumb brushing over the curve of my cheek, a whisper-soft touch that made my heart stutter. I nodded because I was. I was scared of what this meant, scared of what would happen if my brother found out, scared of how deeply I already wanted more. But under that fear was something else, something warm, something that made my chest ache in the best way. "I'm scared too," he said, pressing his forehead to mine. "But I don't want to stop." My fingers tightened in his shirt, pulling him closer, letting him feel that I didn't want to stop either, even if I should. His breath was shaky when it washed over my lips, and when he kissed me again, it was soft, tender, but there was a heat under it, a promise we couldn't take back. His hand slid up my sides, slow, careful, making my breath catch, making my skin feel alive under his touch. I could feel the soft, pulsing warmth building in the quiet, the way every tiny movement felt like it meant something bigger, like it was rewriting everything I thought I knew. We pulled back, our eyes meeting, and there was something in his gaze that made me feel seen, made me feel wanted in a way that scared me and thrilled me all at once. "I don't know how we're going to hide this," I whispered, my voice small, honest. "We'll figure it out," he said, and his hand slid down to take mine, threading our fingers together, grounding me, steadying me. The front door slammed, the sound ripping through the moment, and we jumped apart, hearts pounding, breaths caught in our throats. My brother's voice called from the kitchen, casual, clueless, like the world hadn't just shifted under our feet. We looked at each other, a silent promise passing between us, and for a moment, the fear was still there, but under it was something stronger, something that made me feel alive. Because even as I stepped back, pretending nothing happened, I could still feel his touch on my skin, still taste the soft sweetness of him on my lips. And I knew this was just the beginning.